Hey, how's everybody's Wednesday gone? Hopefully well. I want to talk today about one of the things that happened in the last week of Jesus' life, and it may have been a small, tiny little thing, barely got two paragraphs of text in Scripture, and only two of the gospel writers mentioned it. But it's the time when Jesus was watching people give at the treasury there at the temple, and a woman, widow, came and gave. And you probably know the story, but I'll allude to more of it later. Um, I would never say that I have been wealthy by the standards of which I kind of measure wealth. Now, if you're watching this, you're probably seeing this on a phone or a tablet or a computer monitor or maybe a TV screen that proves that what I just said about never having been wealthy is false. My phone that I have, iPhone, right, cost me well more than I'm going to tell you. And you know if you have one. So it's odd to me when some of us say we're not wealthy people. Now, if we measure our wealth by those around us, then there's always someone ahead of us and there's always someone below us. And that's a dangerous thing to do. I suppose it's human nature, but I think it's something that is dangerous to do because it really kind of warps how we feel about personal wealth. I can remember growing up in a church in northern Indiana. There was a man there who, in my eyes, had the most money I'd ever seen in my life. Now I don't know if that was real or not, but he had fancy cars and a fancy house. And I think the thing that impressed me most is when you went to his house, he had a giant bowl of peanut M&Ms sitting on the coffee table in his pool table room. I'm a sucker for peanut M&Ms, so that I guess showed me how wealthy he was. And then I remember not too long after this, I knew him in the early 80s, maybe 79, 80, 81, somewhere in around that time. I remember my dad saying that he had lost everything and gone bankrupt because the market took a turn. And I probably had no idea what that meant at the time, but it it was painful for me to think of that particular family having no money. And that's exactly what happened to them. And I really don't know how they are or where they are today, but it was a very strange, um, I don't know, thing for my brain to process. Now, in my adult life, I've known people who have had great wealth. I've known some who love to flaunt it. I've known some who are extremely humble with it. I've known some who are tight with it, and I've known some who are generous with it. And I guess why I speak about this today is because all of us have more than most anyone in the world on the planet. Out of the 7+ billion people, we're in an extremely high percentage of wealth. Just by the fact that we live in America puts us there. Uh, Multiple times as a minister, I have been given a challenge, and it's been interesting how this has happened. And it happened just recently. Someone has given me an amount of money, and they will say, "I'm going to, with part of this money, I want you to do something for yourself, for your family, whatever. And then with the other part of this money, I want you to do something to bless someone else's life. And then I want you to kind of figure out what was more meaningful to you." Well, having done this a couple of different times, I know what's more meaningful to me. And frankly, if I'm forced to do something for myself, I feel guilty about it, whether it's my money or someone else's money. I wonder if the situation where Jesus witnessed in today's journal made him think about any of those kinds of things, the comparison of wealth, and when he mentions that the love of money, which that verse is quoted so poorly, the love of money is the root of all evil, and it's harder for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle, and whether that was a gate in Jerusalem or whatever, I don't care. What his point was we got to be careful not to fall in love with our wealth. So he uses a story of him seeing a widow today in a powerful way. And again, with my imagination, this is how I sort of see some of that going. And I hope more than anything that when we finish, that you will be encouraged to be generous. We're in a time now where we need to be generous, and I hope this is a good example for that. Tomorrow is Passover. I have a feeling things will start moving very quickly for me. I can't wait to share this time with my friends, and I know it will be the last time. I have something special planned for them that I hope they'll learn from, but anyway, that's tomorrow. Today seemed to be filled with a lot of discussion about the end of the world and what I know about times and this, and it was interesting talk, and that's important stuff, but it wasn't even close to the most important thing that I saw today. As I've been doing this week, I sat in the temple courts and did some teaching and did some listening and observing. I found myself somewhat mesmerized by what was happening around the temple treasury. There were so many people bringing offerings of money. I watched entire families walk up and drop an offering in, and I saw some very wealthy people walk up with much pomp and circumstance. And they were offering huge offerings, but not until they had the attention of everyone around. And I think they got what they wanted. People were so impressed with them. Watching them actually made me think back a few years to when John had just baptized me, and I went to spend some time in solitude, fasting. And Satan showed his ugly head to try to take advantage of me while I was there, and I was wiped out. One of the things he tempted me with was riches. I can't lie, I was exhausted when Satan was messing with me. I needed nourishment and a comfortable rest, but in my humanity, I was wiped out. I almost have a hunch that when people hear about those temptations, they think that it was an easy thing for me to dispense with them. But in my humanity and weakness, hunger and exhaustion, they all look pretty good to me. So I do sort of understand the mindset of the wealthy. I don't have a problem with those who are wealthy. But then there are those who love wealth so much that it rules every waking moment, and even when they give, they're proud of what they have. And that's what allows them to give. I saw those people today. The thing that caught my eye today was a woman. She had lost her husband some time back and didn't have anything. She was making it the best she could, which is to say she barely had anything at all. But what she did, all the world's problems could be solved if everyone had her generous heart. I watched closely, and I may have been the only one who even noticed her. She humbly walked to the treasury and dropped in 2 small coins. You could barely hear them plink against the other offerings. Very different sound than what the wealthy were making as they would drop their massive donations in. I knew instantly that she had given everything she had, and I immediately asked my father to bless her because of that. I'm sure he was way ahead of me on that. I also called the guys over and I said, "You see that woman over there? Take note of her." They did, but they looked puzzled. She gave the most out of anyone today. More blank looks. I went on. So many people are giving today out of their surplus, they won't even miss it. This woman gave in faith everything she had. She doesn't even know where her next meal will come from, but she gave anyway. My Father will bless her because of this. Those others have their blessing in impressing other people. What a powerful example she is. She's so generous and faithful. I'm not sure that this sunk in on the guys or not. I really don't think a lot of things I've said to them is going to sink in until, let's just say they don't have very long to wait.